the top, or I'm sorry, underneath number 6, you should have your squiggly line. If you're out of space after number 6, you may, of course, go to your next page, which means you don't need your squiggly line, but you do still need the title of this part of the notes at the top. Yes, Sadie?
Is it okay, since I already wrote the title in the back, that this is here?
I'm confused. What do you mean?
Like, there's a big space.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So your title, which all of you should have most of already, is Wonder Part 8. Chapters 13 through, which all of you should have that as well as the date, because you know we finished chapter 12 the other day. What are we going to start on today, class? 13.
Chapter 13.
So you should already have Wonder Part 8, Chapter 13 through, and now you can go ahead and put 17. Underline it, because it is a title for our notes. And then you should already have the date, December 9th, 2020. Only 7 more days that we're going to be writing 20 in the date. I mean, unless you write stuff at home. But only 7 more school days of 2020. Okay, and we're going to start with number 7. Number 7. The word number 7 is the word perch. Perch. P-E-R-C-H. Perch. Yes, Colin.
Will these just be Zadie's or both of us?
They'll be Zadie's. There are 4 words, but they'll just be Zadie's. So unfortunately, you don't get any this week. Maybe next week, but maybe not till after Christmas. But you'll get some eventually. Perch. P-E-R-C-H. Perch. P-E-R-C-H. Perch. So Zadie, these are your words. So you need to make sure everything appears exactly as I have it up here. No random capitals, no missing letters, no extra letters, no missing words. Make sure it matches exactly what I have up here, okay? Perch is a verb. It's an action. So perch is a verb that means to balance or settle on a small space. So you've probably heard perch before about birds. Thinking of this definition, what do birds perch on? Zari.
Branches.
A tree branch. So I want you to picture a bird perched on a branch. You can close your eyes and picture it. When you picture a bird perched on a branch, knowing this definition, is it a real wide, thick branch? Or is it like a little thin branch? Colin?
Little thin.
A little and thin, because that would be balanced or settled on a small space. So very good. But birds aren't the only ones that perch on things. Sometimes we do. I see you guys all the time perched on the edge of your seat, where your back legs are like up, your back legs of your chair are like up in the air, and you're just perched there, just balanced. Well, do you have the balance of a bird? So a bird doesn't fall off the branch, but what do people do because they don't have the balance of a bird? They fall. So don't perch on the edge of your chair. So here's the word in context. Mom and I didn't talk much the whole walk home, and when we got to the front stoop, I automatically looked in the front bay window because I forgot for a second that Daisy wasn't going to be there like always, perched on the sofa with her front paws on the windowsill. So I want you to picture that happening. Only her back legs are perched on the back of the sofa. Her front legs are up there. So can you picture how that would mean balanced or settled in a small area? Okay. Number 8 is the word devour. Devour. D-E-V-O-U-R. Devour. D-E-V-O-U-R. Devour. You might have heard this before. Devour is another verb. And it means to eat quickly and hungrily. So if you are really, really hungry, you may devour your food, which means you're eating quickly and hungrily. You can't get enough. And you're just shoving it in your mouth, ready to eat. So that is devour. Devour, D-E-V-O-U-R, is a verb, and it means to eat quickly and hungrily. Oh, here it is in context. I started devouring the sandwich. So as you're reading, you're going to listen. Who is doing the devouring? Why are they eating so hungrily? Who gave it to them? Whatever. Just listen for that whole situation. Okay, number 9 is the word beam. Now we're going to say beaming. Even though it's a verb and I like to put just the base verb, in this case we're going to use beaming. It's like milling. It doesn't work as well when you just use the base verb like mill. So beaming, B-E-A-M-I-N-G, beaming, B-E-A-M-I-N-G, beaming. It is another verb. So it's another action. And it means smiling and glowing with happiness. Now, do you think the person is literally glowing? Like a glow-in-the-dark sticker? No. But you've seen where somebody looks so happy, it's almost as if you can see the light from their face. Just because they're so happy. So beaming, B-E-A-M-I-N-G, is a verb, and it means smiling and glowing with happiness. Somebody is so happy that the happiness just comes off of them in waves. So here it is in context. She started beaming as she listened. Well, who is she? What is she listening to? Why is it making her smile and glow with happiness? Any questions about spelling or anything like that? Okay, last word. Number 10 is the word monumental. M-O-N-U-M-E-N-T-A-L. Monumental. M-O-N-U-M-E-N-T-A-L. Monumental. Take a breath. Calm down. Monumental is an adjective. It's a describing word. it describes a noun. And remember, adjectives describe nouns, adverbs describe verbs. So this is an adjective, monumental, which means you would use it to describe a noun, a person, place, thing, or idea. And it means something is huge and important. So monumental, M-O-N-U-M-E-N-T-A-L, is an adjective. That means something is huge and important. It doesn't just have to mean huge in size, because sometimes like a feeling can be monumental, or something that happens to you can be monumental. Because it doesn't just mean huge in size, it means just huge in general. Like something really, really big that happens in your life, something really, really important. It can mean huge as in the importance, too. Yes, Zadie?
And when we write these words, you have to make sure the words like Y and P go down below.
Exactly, yes. Y, P, G, J, some of you are forgetting J, and Q, which we don't see too often, but all of those have tails that go between go underneath the line. Here it is in context. When I went back to school the next day, the first thing I noticed was that there was a big shift in the way things were. A monumental shift. So that means something has changed. It has changed in a huge, important way. When we're reading, I want you to listen for that word. What has changed? Why is it so important? Who is it important to? Mason, do you have a question? Okay, so go ahead and finish those definitions. Excuse me. Then you can put away your vocab. Zadie, any questions? So Zadie, tonight make sure that you bring home your vocab notebook and your Flair, so your pencil bag, which you're probably going to bring home anyway for your your final draft, but don't forget your vocab notebook. Let me go ahead and give you your cards. Everybody should be in their good listening position. They should feel their back on the back of their chair and their chest just barely touching their desk. Feet should be down and as still as possible. Books should be on their desk, ready to follow along. We are on page 275. Make sure you're using your finger or your bookmark to follow along. Make sure you are focusing. Carla, where's your book? We're on page 275. Make sure you're following along with your finger or your bookmark. Your book should be on your desk. Your hands should both be on your book. Chapter 13, Aftermath. Mom was waiting for me in front of the school along with all the other parents when the bus arrived. Mr. Tushman told me on the bus ride home that they had called my parents to tell them there had been a situation the night before, but that everyone was fine. He said the camp director and several of the counselors went looking for the hearing aid in the morning while we all went swimming in the lake, but they couldn't find it anywhere. Broarwood would reimburse us the cost of the hearing aids, he said. They felt bad about what had happened. I wondered if Eddie had taken my hearing aids with him as a kind of souvenir, something to remember the orc. Mom gave me a tight hug when I got off the bus, but she didn't slam me with questions like I thought she might. Her hug felt good, and I didn't want to shake it off like some of the other kids were doing with their parents' hugs. The bus driver started unloading our duffel bags, and I went to find mine while Mom talked to Mr. Tushman and Miss Rubin, who had walked over to her. As I rolled my bag toward her, a lot of kids who don't usually say anything to me were nodding hello or patting my back as I walked by them. "Ready?" Mom said when she saw me. She took my duffel bag, and I didn't even try to hold on to it. I was fine with her carrying it. If she had wanted to carry me on her shoulders, I would have been fine with that too, to be truthful. As we started to walk away, Mr. Tushman gave me a quick, tight hug, but didn't say anything. Chapter 14. Home. Mom and I didn't talk much the whole walk home, and when we got to the front stoop, I automatically looked in the front bay window, because I forgot for a second that Daisy wasn't going to be there like always, perched on the sofa with her front paws on the windowsill, waiting for us to come home. It made me kind of sad when we walked inside. As soon as we did, Mom dropped my duffel bag and wrapped her arms around me and kissed me on my head and on my face, like she was breathing me in. "It's okay, Mom, I'm fine," I said, smiling. She nodded and took my face in her hands. Her eyes were shiny. "I know you are," she said. "I missed you so much, Augie." "I missed you too." I could tell she wanted to say a lot of things, but she was stopping herself. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "Starving. Can I have a grilled cheese?" "Of course," she answered, and immediately started to make the sandwich while I took my jacket off and sat down at the kitchen counter. "Where's Via?" I asked. "She's coming home with Dad today. Boy, did she miss you, Augie," Mom said. "Yeah? She would have liked the nature reserve. You know what movie they played? The Sound of Music." "You'll have to tell her that. Carla, make sure you're focusing and following along. Have a seat." "So, do you want to hear about the bad part or the good part first?" I asked after a few minutes, leaning my head on my hand. "Whatever you want to talk about," she answered. "Well, except for last night, I had an awesome time," I said. "I mean, it was just awesome. That's why I'm so bummed. I feel like they ruined the whole trip for me." "No, sweetie, don't let them do that to you. You were there for more than 48 hours, and that awful part lasted 1 hour. Don't let them take that away from you, okay?" "I know," I nodded. "Did Mr. Tushman tell you about the hearing aids?" "Yes, he called us this morning." "Was Dad mad? Because they're so expensive?" "Oh my gosh, of course not, Augie. He just wanted to know that you were all right. That's all that matters to us. And that you don't let those thugs ruin your trip." I kind of laughed at the way she said the word thugs. "What?" "What?" she asked. "Thugs," I teased her. "That's kind of an old-fashioned word." "Okay, jerks, morons, imbeciles," she said, flipping over the sandwich in the pan. "Cretinos, as my mother would have said. Whatever you want to call them. If I saw them on the street, I would..." She shook her head. "They were pretty big, Mom," I smiled. "7th graders, I think." She shook her head. "7th graders? Mr. Tushman didn't tell us that. Oh my goodness." "Did he tell you how Jack stood up for me?" I said. "And Amos was like, bam, he rammed right into the leader. They both crashed to the ground, like in a real fight. It was pretty awesome. Amos's lip was bleeding and everything." "He told us there was a fight, but," she said, looking at me with her eyebrows raised, I'm just so grateful you and Amos and Jack are fine. When I think about what could have happened..." She trailed off, flipping the grilled cheese again. "My Montauk hoodie got totally shredded." "Well, that can be replaced," she answered. She lifted the grilled cheese onto a plate and put the plate in front of me on the counter. "Milk or white grape juice?" "Chocolate milk, please." I started devouring the sandwich. "Oh, can you do it that special way you make it, with the froth?" "How did you and Jack end up at the edge of the woods in the first place?" she said, pouring the milk into a tall glass. "Jack had to go to the bathroom," I answered, my mouth full. As I was talking, she spooned in the chocolate powder and started rolling a small whisk between her palms really fast. "But there was a huge line and he didn't want to wait, so we went toward the woods to pee." She looked up at me while she was whisking. I know she was thinking we shouldn't have done that. The chocolate milk in the glass now had a 2-inch froth on top. "That looks good, Mom. Thanks." "And then what happened?" she said, putting the glass in front of me. I took a long drink of the chocolate milk. "Is it okay if we don't talk about it anymore right now?" Okay. I promise I'll tell you about it later when Dad and Via come home. I'll tell you every detail. I just don't want to have to tell the whole story over and over, you know? Absolutely. I finished my sandwich in 2 more bites and gulped down the chocolate milk. Wow, you practically inhaled that sandwich. Do you want another one? She said. I shook my head and wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. Mom, am I always going to have to worry about jerks like that? I asked. Like, when I grow up, is it always going to be like this? She didn't answer right away, but took my plate and glass and put them in the sink and rinsed them with water. There are always going to be jerks in the world, Augie, she said, looking at me. But I really believe, and Daddy really believes, that there are more good people on this earth than bad people. And the good people watch out for each other and take care of each other. Just like Jack was there for you, and Amos, and those other kids. Oh yeah, Miles and Henry, I answered. They were awesome too. It's weird because Miles and Henry haven't even really been nice to me at all during this year. Sometimes people surprise us, she said, rubbing the top of my head. I guess. Carla, make sure you're focusing. That's not important right now. You need to make sure that you're focusing and following along and you understand what's happening in the story. Want another glass of chocolate milk? No, I'm good, I said. Thanks, Mom. Actually, I'm kind of tired. I didn't sleep too good last night. You should take a nap. Thanks for leaving me Babu, by the way. You got my note? She smiled. I slept with him both nights. She was about to say something else when her cell phone rang, and she answered. She started beaming as she listened. Oh my goodness, really? What kind? She said excitedly. Yep, he's right here. He was about to take a nap. Want to say hi? Oh, okay. See you in 2 minutes. She clicked it off. That was Daddy, she said excitedly. He and Via are just down the block. He's not at work, I said. He left early because he couldn't wait to see you, she said. So don't take a nap quite yet. 5 seconds later, Dad and Via came through the door. I ran into Dad's arms, and he picked me up and spun me around and kissed me. He didn't let me go for a full minute, until I said, Dad, it's okay. And then it was Via's turn, and she kissed me all over like she used to do when I was little. It wasn't until she stopped that I noticed the big white cardboard box they had brought in with them. What is that? I said. Open it, said Dad, smiling, and he and Mom looked at each other like they knew a secret. Come on, Augie, said Via. I opened the box. Inside was the cutest little puppy I've ever seen in my life. It was black and furry with a pointy little snout and bright black eyes and small ears that flopped down. Chapter 15, Bear. We called the puppy Bear because when Mom first saw him, she said he looked just like a little bear cub. I said, that's what we should call him. And everyone agreed that that was the perfect name. I took the next day off from school, not because my elbow was hurting me, which it was, but so I could play with Bear all day long. Mom let Via stay home from school too, so the two of us took turns cuddling with Bear and playing tug-of-war with him. We had kept all of Daisy's old toys, and we brought them out now to see which ones he'd like best. It was fun hanging out with Via all day, just the two of us. It was like old times, like before I started going to school. Back then, I couldn't wait for her to come home from school so she could play with me before starting her homework. Now that we're older, though, and I'm going to school and have friends of my own that I hang out with, we never do that anymore. So it was nice hanging out with her, laughing and playing. I think she liked it too. Carla, focus. You should be focused on your book, not any of the things around you. Chapter 16, The Shift. When I went back to school the next day, the first thing I noticed was that there was a big shift in the way things were. A monumental shift. A seismic shift. Maybe even a cosmic shift. Whatever you want to call it, it was a big shift. Everyone, not just in our grade, but every grade, had heard about what had happened to us with the 7th graders. So suddenly, I wasn't known for what I'd always been known for, but for this other thing that had happened. And the story of what happened had gotten bigger and bigger each time it was told. 2 days later, the way the story went was that Amos had gotten into a major fist fight with the kid, and Miles and Henry and Jack had thrown some punches at the other guys too. And the escape across the field became this whole long adventure through a cornfield maze and into the deep, dark woods. Jack's version of the story was probably the best because he's so funny. But in whatever version of the story, and no matter who was telling it, 2 things always stayed the same. I got picked on because of my face, and Jack defended me. And those guys, Amos, Henry, and Miles, protected me. And now that they'd protected me, I was different to them. It was like I was one of them. They all called me little dude now, even the jocks. These big dudes I barely even knew before would knuckle punch me in the hallways now. You know what knuckle punch is, right? It's like a fist bump. They're not punching him. It's like a fist bump. Just wanted to make sure. Another thing to come out of it was that Amos became super popular, and Julian, because he missed the whole thing, was really out of the loop. Miles and Henry were hanging out with Amos all the time now, like they switched best friends. I'd like to be able to say that Julian started treating me better too, but that wouldn't be true. He still gave me dirty looks across the room. He still never talked to me or Jack, but he was the only one who was like that now. And me and Jack, we couldn't care less. Chapter 17, Ducks. The day before the last day of school, Mr. Tushman called me into his office to tell me that they had found out the names of the 7th graders from the nature retreat. He read off a bunch of names that didn't mean anything to me, and then he said the last name, Edward Johnson. I nodded. You recognize that name? He said. They called him Eddie. Right, well, they found this in Edward's locker. He handed me what was left of my hearing aid headband. The right piece was completely gone, and the left one was mangled. The band that connected the two, the Lobot part, was bent down the middle. His school wants to know if you want to press charges, said Mr. Tushman. I looked at my hearing aid. No, I don't think so, I shrugged. I'm being fitted for new ones anyway. Why don't you talk about it with your parents tonight? I'll call your mom tomorrow to talk about it with her too. Would they go to jail? I asked. No, not jail, but they'd probably go to juvie court, and maybe they'll learn a lesson that way. Trust me, that Eddie kid is not learning any lessons, I joked. He sat down behind his desk and simply stopped. Augie, why don't you sit down for a second, he said. I sat down. All the things on his desk were the same as when I first walked into his office last summer. The same mirrored cube, the same little globe floating in the air. That felt like ages ago. Carla, are you focusing? This is not going to be very helpful when you start doing your journal. Please make sure that you are focusing and following along. Put the pencil down, please. Or whatever that is. Hard to believe this year's almost over, huh? He said, almost like he was reading my mind. Yeah. Has it been a good year for you, Augie? Has it been okay? Yeah, it's been good, I nodded. I know academically it's been a great year for you. You're one of our top students. Congrats on the high honor roll. Thanks. Yeah, that's cool. But I know it's had its share of ups and downs, he said, raising his eyebrows. Certainly that night at the nature reserve was one of the low points. Yeah, I nodded. But it was also kind of good, too. In what way? Well, you know, how people stood up for me and stuff. That was pretty wonderful, he said, smiling. Yeah. I know in school things got a little hairy with Julian at times. I have to admit, he surprised me with that one. You know about that stuff? I asked him. Middle school directors have a way of knowing about a lot of stuff. Do you have, like, secret security cameras in the hallways? I joked. And microphones everywhere, he laughed. No, seriously? He laughed again. No, not seriously. Oh. But teachers know more than kids think, Augie. I wish you and Jack had come to me about the mean notes that were left in your lockers. How do you know about that? I said. I'm telling you, middle school directors know all. It wasn't that big a deal, I answered, and we wrote notes too. He smiled. I don't know if it's public yet, he said, though it will be soon anyway, but Julian Albans is not coming back to Beecher Prep next year. What? I said. I honestly couldn't hide how surprised I was. His parents don't think Beecher Prep is a good fit for him, Mr. Tushman continued, raising his shoulders. Wow, that's big news, I said. Yeah, I thought you should know. Then, suddenly, I noticed that the pumpkin portrait that used to be behind his desk was gone, and my drawing, my self-portrait as an animal that I drew for the New Year art show, was now framed and hanging behind his desk. Hey, that's mine, I pointed. Mr. Tushman turned around like he didn't know what I was talking about. Oh, that's right, he said, tapping his forehead. I've been meaning to show this to you for months now. My self-portrait as a duck, I nodded. I love this piece, Augie, he said. When your art teacher showed it to me, I asked her if I could keep it for my wall. I hope that's okay with you. Oh, yeah, sure. What happened to the pumpkin portrait? Right behind you. Oh, yeah, nice. I've been meaning to ask you since I hung this up, he said, looking at it. Why did you choose to represent yourself as a duck? What do you mean? I answered. That was the assignment. Yes, but why a duck? He said. Is it safe to assume that it was because of the story of the duckling that turns into a swan? No, I laughed, shaking my head. It's because I think I look like a duck. Oh, said Mr. Tushman, his eyes opening wide. He started laughing. Really? Huh. Here I was looking for symbolism and metaphors, and, sometimes a duck is just a duck. Yeah, I guess, I said, not quite getting why he thought that was so funny. He laughed to himself for a good 30 seconds. Anyway, Augie, thanks for chatting with me, he said, finally. I just want you to know it's truly a pleasure having you here at Beecher Prep, and I'm really looking forward to next year. He reached across the desk and we shook hands. See you tomorrow at graduation. See you tomorrow, Mr. Tushman. Okay. Who heard perch? Colin.
When Augie and his mom was coming home, were coming home, and he forgot that Daisy died, and he thought that she was by the window.
What was she doing? Why did he say perch or perched?
Because she normally has her paws on the window.
Very good. So she's kind of balanced up there. Good. Okay, what about devour? Who heard devour? Smith.
When August came home from camp and he was so hungry that he ate a grilled cheese sandwich really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Why might he have been so hungry? This is where you can make inferences. Think about when you've come home from a long trip or something like that. Zadie?
You didn't eat breakfast.
Maybe he didn't eat breakfast. Victoria?
Maybe he didn't get enough to eat.
Maybe he didn't get enough to eat.
Or he did eat a lot of breakfast, but 4 hours without food.
Maybe it was a long time. Maybe he's used to having little snacks. Aaron?
Maybe when the kids that were being mean to him, he missed all the snacks and food that he got to eat.
Maybe. That's true. That could be. Could be any one of those reasons. Okay, who heard beaming? Who heard beaming? Zari.
When August's mom was on the phone with August's dad, and she was smiling, and she was like, "Oh, really?" And she was about to take a nap, and she was just happy.
Why was she so happy? We don't know in that moment, but then we find out after a little bit. Why was she so happy? Why was she beaming?
Because
Okay, yeah, let's give somebody else a chance. Carla, why was she so happy and beaming? Thank you, Zari, though.
Because Augie's dad told August's mom that they got a dog for August.
And they were on their way. So she was really excited. We didn't hear that part of the conversation, but we can infer that that's what they were talking about, because what was the next thing that happened? What was the very next thing that happened? Michaela?
They got a dog.
They came home with a dog. Good. Okay. Monumental. Who heard monumental? Victoria.
I heard it when August was coming into school.
Okay.
And something was big and monumental.
What was monumental? Lady?
The change in how people treated him.
The change in how people treated him. It was very different. All of a sudden they were doing what? That was different. It was a monumental change, a huge, huge change. What were they doing all of a sudden? Cullen?
They were fist bumping.
They were fist bumping him. And what was going on before that made this such a monumental change? Cullen?
They weren't like talking to him and not
They
fist
wouldn't
bumping.
touch him. Why? They even had a game where if you touched him, you had to wash your hands. What was that game called? Mason?
The plague.
The plague. And now all of a sudden they're fist bumping him. And they're talking to him and they're friends with him. And then what's the monumental shift with Julian? Something changed. Something huge changed. Aaron?
Julian wasn't coming back to.
Well, it was before that.
Next.
This was before we find that out. There was a monumental shift with Julian. What was it? Or with the people around Julian? Zari?
That he was starting to be nice, but he still wasn't all the way nice. But
Was he starting to be nice? Did it ever say that he was being nice? Think about it. What was different when we talk about Julian? It wasn't that he was being nice. It never said that he was being nice. It said that he was still doing the same stuff as always. But what was different? Colin?
It's just
Victoria?
that everybody would say that the war was still happening. Everybody went to August's side,
Everybody went to August's side.
and
Henry and Miles were
hanging out with Amos.
They were hanging out with Amos. So now, is Julian still the most popular kid?
No.
Who is it now? Who does it seem like it is now? Mason?
Amos?
Amos. Very good. Okay, so there was a huge monumental shift. Okay, so girls at home, go ahead and get out your reading journals, open them up to the first clean page, and go ahead and add the title, Wonder Part 8, chapters 13 through 17, and today's date. Everybody at school, oh, I forgot, you have your journals, so go ahead and get them out. Open them up to the first clean page. Write the title, Wonder Part 8, chapters 13 through 17, and then today's date, December 9th, 2020. Once you are finished writing the title and the date, close your journals. Okay, number 1, how is August feeling when he leaves camp? Use text evidence to support your answer. Now I know this looks like a capital F, but it is supposed to be lowercase. When I was writing these questions, I was getting really close to the end, and so if I made a mistake, I just kind of had to leave it. So that is supposed to be a lowercase f, but you should know that because is feeling proper anything? No. Is it the first letter, the first word of the sentence? No. So it should be lowercase. So how is August feeling when he leaves camp? Use text evidence to support your answer. So he's feeling a certain way. How is he feeling? Use the text evidence to say why he's feeling that way. Does everybody understand how to answer that question? Okay. Oh gosh. Well, we'll just have to pack up real quick today. Number 2, what is August's mom's response? Well, no, actually, this will be homework instead of a reading log. So let's talk about the questions really quick. Then while you're packing up, I will quickly print out the questions. And this will be homework instead of a reading log. So again, you'll do 20 minutes. Mason, please don't do that. There's not a point to that. Right? Does that do anything? No. So let's just not. So let's go over the questions and then it'll just be homework. Number 2, what is August's mom's response when he asks if he'll always have to worry about germs? So that comes from the story. She gives him a response. Please try to write it in as best you can in your own words. Do you agree or disagree with her? Now this is not text evidence because where does this answer come from? Do you agree or disagree with her? Where does it come from? Mason, your brain. Now, I know it doesn't say that up here because again I ran out of space and I knew I wouldn't be able to forget it all. But anytime you have a question like do you agree or disagree, what do you have to tell me? Michaela. Why? Why do you agree? Why do you disagree? I'll make sure it says that. It might say, does it say that on your copy, girls at home?
No.
Okay.
No.
So girls at home, go ahead and add the word why to the end of number 2. Do not forget to answer why. Number 3, what is Dad and Via surprise? That's a really short answer, right? So if you answer number 3, then I expect an extra question answered. Because number 3 you can answer in one sentence. But that means you better have extra elsewhere. Do you understand?
But Miss Bowles?
Yes.
Don't we have to have 2 sentences for
But
one?
remember, every once in a while we get a question like this. We had it a few weeks ago or a few journals ago. But I said you can answer in one question, in one sentence, but I better see that extra effort somewhere else. Okay? Okay, number 4. Why do August and Via stay home from school? Why does August think this time is extra special? Now this is all text evidence. We know why they stay home from school. August tells us why it's special. So use text evidence, but should you copy directly from the book?
No.
Never, unless it says use a quote or something like that. Number 5, what are the huge differences that August notices when he returns to school? Be specific. Now you don't have to write be specific. You notice the rest is underlined in red, and I think I underlined it at home.
You did.
But you need to be specific. What exactly are the differences, the huge differences? Don't just tell me like a quick little answer. You need to be specific. What exactly is different? There are several things. Again, that comes from text evidence. Number 6, what surprises August when he talks to Mr. Tushman? There are several things that surprises him. So you need to figure out what those things are and you need to write about them. Again, text evidence. But you know what? I'm going to add the question, why does it surprise him? Oh man, whatever. So girls at home, at the end of number 6, put the word why. Number 7, so text evidence answers what surprises August when he talks to Mr. Tushman. Making an inference answers the question why. There may be some text evidence that answers why, but you'll also have to make an inference. Number 7, why does August say that the night at the nature reserve was kind of bad, but also kind of good? And then I think there is an extra bit on yours, which I'm really glad I'm sending at home because there is more, because I want you to answer, when is a time that you felt this way? Is that on number 7 on yours, girls?
Yes, it's just
Yes.
a little different.
Yes.
It just have.
It just has,
have
yes, I
you
know,
ever
Zara, you don't have to tell me. So good, I'm glad I'm printing it out because then you'll have it. Because there's another question that says, name a time when you felt this way. We've all felt that way about something, where it was kind of a bad thing, but something good came out of it. So you need to name it. You need to talk about it and name it. And why was it good, why was it bad? Number 8. Do you think going to a new school will be better for Julian? Why? Do you think he'll change at all? Why and how? So that has several parts to it. This is all making an inference. Do you think going to a new school will be better for Julian? Will he change? Why? Will it be better or worse? How do you think he'll change? Okay? So why and how? Why would it be better or the same for him to go to a new school? How do you think he'll change? Okay. If you say he won't change at all, why do you think he won't change at all? So for both of these questions, perfect timing. For both of these questions, number 8, do you think going to a new school will be better for Julian? And do you think he'll change at all? You need to say why and how, okay? I forgot, I do have why here. After, do you think it'll be better for Julian? So whether you say it'll be worse or better, I need to know why and how for both questions, okay? Any questions about the questions? Zadie, quickly, because we need to pack up.
And so what you're also saying is if you do number 8, even if you say no, you can't just say no. You have to say
Yes,
how.
exactly. You can't just say, no, he won't change. You have to say why you think that. We're not just picking the easy answer, even if it's not the answer we actually feel, just so we don't have to write more. Because if you say no, well, you still have to say why you say no, okay? You always must defend your answer to anything. Why did you answer that way? And you need to know why you answered that. That's what you're practicing. When you're younger, you don't know why you're answering, just because that's how it is. But as you get older, you need to be able to say why you answered a certain way, why you think what you think, okay? How you came to that thought. Any more questions about the questions? Okay. Leave those out on your